Hello viewers, today I'm going to show you the positive side to the Battlefield Hardline beta. So far, from what I've played, the game is amazing. The driving is very fluid. I'm just really bad at it. I'm sure you can see that for yourselves. So I did get into the PS4 beta with a code from my friend, and he wanted to see some Battlefield Hardline beta. So here we are. We got into the beta. The driving's pretty good. You can pretty much go anywhere you want. You can drive on top of other cars, all kinds of good stuff. So right now there's only 2 game modes that we can play, and the one we're playing right now is called Blood Money. It's a pretty interesting game. There's you have your base and you have the enemy's base, and as you can do, you can steal the enemy's money straight from their base, or you can go to the center one, but we'll talk about that later. So what I'm doing right now is lowering their score and then increasing our score, as opposed to going to the center one and just adding more revenue to the game. The graphics so far are fantastic, even for a beta. I was actually quite impressed with this. Less bloom, less dust in the air, so everything's a little more, visually accepting to the eyes. And with the, a cool 60 frames per second, it's, finally able to compete with some of the other big name titles. Now here we're going to see the center cache. Now I personally don't like to go to the center cache, and I'll tell you why. You're adding more revenue for the match, period. And if your team is on a good rally point, it's absolutely fundamental to be taking from the middle. But if your team is very close, it's more useful to take the money straight out of theirs, because you're just lowering theirs and not adding more revenue to the ground. Because if you say you get 400,000 or 500,000, whatever the max is, I think it's 500, and you die, you just drop that money, they can pick that money up instantly, adding more revenue to them and giving you nothing. But if you take it from theirs, you're lowering them, period. If they get it back, all they're doing is getting what they already had back. They're not adding to their revenue. So the vehicles are also pretty available. There's tons of vehicles all over the place, and almost all of them are drivable, though with the exception of some of the vehicles you'll see on the ground. Also, the able to revive people with a single button is a pretty neat trick, though I do prefer the patty cakes. I think it made a little more sense than you get shot in the face, an EpiPen's not exactly going to bring you back. Now the teamwork in this game is actually very, very amazing, and the action, you're going to see a lot of action in this game constantly. And because there's a lot of action, having these mobile spawn points in a Battlefield game is for once useful and doesn't get destroyed immediately. And since there's not as many tanks or jets or anything really big like that, there's not quite as many people running around with an RPG. It's also really helpful to note that because of these vehicles, you're able to get around very quickly. You're able to, not as many people shoot them down. And like I said before, the teamwork is fantastic. Everyone I played with were pretty nice in terms of, Battlefield players. And being a noob myself to the Battlefield series, well, not necessarily a noob. I played Bad Company 2 back in the day, but since then I haven't really got into the Battlefield series. Nothing against it, just hasn't been my cup of tea. But coming back into the fray with Hardline, it's a fresh taste. Everything's different, everything's new. And people that will say it's not new, they probably haven't actually played the beta. Once you play it and you realize that it's a Battlefield title. I mean, it looks very similar to Battlefield 4, but why does that have to be a bad thing? Battlefield 4 did look pretty good, even though it had its errors. And I love the urban environment. It hits a little closer to home, and having the whole cops versus robbers thing, it's something you can actually see yourself doing. Not saying I'm going to go around and rob banks, but it's something that's physically possible. If I wanted to, I could rob a bank. But if I wanted to go to the military and go off and fight in a different country, that's not something I can just up and do. Now, in this game, when you don't really know what you're doing, it's best just to kind of follow someone who does know what they're doing. So that's kind of what my mentality's been, kind of follow the leaders, sticking with the squad. The controls themselves are a little unorthodox from what I'm used to, but with the great options, you're able to customize them pretty much however you want. Now, the self-revive, what you're seeing right now, is a very nifty feature for someone like me who likes to rush around and isn't always within arm's reach of an ally. But with the self-revive, I can always revive myself whenever I want. So if you enjoyed this positive review, please give it a like and a subscribe, and the negative review will be out shortly. Thank you very much. Have a good day.